Eat more superfoods after 60, the advice goes, as if the food alone does the work. Here's what nobody adds. Past 60, your body can eat the exact same meal a 30-year-old eats and extract a fraction of what they get from it. Same plate, same fork, completely different physiology underneath. This isn't about eating healthy in the abstract. It's about which foods still work once your body has quietly changed the rules on what counts as a meal. Not every food that gets called a superfood earns a place on this list. The bar here is narrow. Does this food target a specific breakdown that starts in your 60s? In muscle, in absorption, in inflammation? Or is it just generically healthy, the way kale is healthy for everyone, at every age, for no particular reason? 10 foods made the cut. Each one earns its spot by targeting one exact mechanism that starts failing quietly in your body, long before it would show up on a scale or in a mirror.
Here's the mechanism driving most of this list. Starting sometime in your 50s and accelerating through your 60s, the body enters a state researchers call anabolic resistance. Your muscle stops responding normally to protein. In a 25-year-old, around 20 to 25 grams of high-quality protein, about 2 to 3 grams of a single amino acid called leucine, is enough to flip the switch that builds new muscle. In a 65-year-old, that same plate barely registers. The muscle needs a much bigger signal just to notice the meal happened at all. Researchers have measured this directly. Older muscle typically needs somewhere on the order of 30 to 40 grams of high-quality protein per meal, with a leucine trigger of roughly 3 grams to produce the anabolic response a younger body gets from half that amount. Skip that threshold, meal after meal, and you're not maintaining muscle. You're mildly losing it, on a schedule without any single moment where it feels like something happened. Averaged across a full day, geriatric nutrition guidelines recommend older adults consume at least 1.0 to 1.2 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight, noticeably more than the general adult guideline most people grew up hearing, and 1.2 to 1.5 grams for anyone who's active or managing a chronic illness.
And it isn't only muscle. 2 other systems quietly downgrade with age. Medical studies estimate that somewhere between 1 in 5 and 1 in 3 people over 60 develop atrophic gastritis, a thinning of the stomach lining that reduces stomach acid. That acid is what actually releases vitamin B12 from meat, eggs, and dairy so your body can absorb it. Without enough of it, the B12 sits in the food, technically eaten, functionally unavailable. And your skin's ability to make vitamin D from sunlight declines by roughly 13% every decade, so that by 70, you're producing about half of what you did at 20 from the exact same afternoon outside. This is the trap hiding inside most eat healthy after 60 advice. It assumes the food alone is the whole equation. It isn't. You can eat a technically protein-rich meal and still fall short of the leucine threshold your muscle now requires. You can eat meat and dairy your whole life and still run quietly low on B12 because the acid that unlocks it from food has thinned out underneath you. You can spend an hour in the sun and make half the vitamin D you used to make from that same hour without anything about your behavior changing at all. The food matters, but only once you know exactly which wall it's supposed to break through.
This isn't theoretical. In 2015, researchers published a 13-week trial in the Journal of the American Medical Directors Association, run on 380 older adults who already had sarcopenia, clinically measurable muscle loss. Half received a supplement engineered around exactly this mechanism, whey protein enriched with extra leucine, plus vitamin D, taken twice a day. The other half received a matched placebo. After 13 weeks, the supplement group had measurably gained muscle mass and gotten meaningfully better at the sit-to-stand test, a direct proxy for whether someone can get out of a chair unassisted. Nothing else about their lives changed. The only variable was hitting the threshold their muscle actually needed. So here are the 10 foods that specifically target these walls, not because they're trendy, but because of exactly what they're built to unlock. 1. Eggs. A large egg carries about 6 grams of complete protein, with an unusually dense leucine content for its size, making it one of the most efficient ways to chip away at that 30 to 40 gram threshold, without needing to eat a huge volume of food, which matters because appetite also quietly shrinks with age. 2. Cottage cheese. It digests slowly, releasing amino acids over hours instead of all at once, keeping a steady stream of leucine available to muscle tissue for far longer than a fast-digesting protein would.
3. Greek yogurt or skyr. Same slow protein logic as cottage cheese, with the added benefit of live cultures that support a gut microbiome that itself tends to shift with age. 4. Salmon and other fatty fish. Beyond the protein, the omega-3 fats appear to make muscle tissue more sensitive to the anabolic signal from protein in the first place, effectively lowering the threshold your body needs to respond. 5. Sardines. An underrated entry. A single small tin delivers protein, omega-3s, and a meaningful dose of vitamin D all at once, directly offsetting that fading skin synthesis. 6. Lentils and other legumes. Plant protein alone rarely hits the leucine bar by itself, but paired with a grain or a dairy source, lentils add fiber and folate that most 60-plus diets are quietly short on. 7. Walnuts and almonds. Healthy fats and modest protein, but their real value here is the vitamin E and polyphenols that support the same anti-inflammatory environment the omega-3s in fish are working on. 8. Leafy greens like spinach and kale. Genuinely excellent for folate and vitamin K, with one important asterisk, because this is also where the hidden cost on this list lives. 9. Fortified foods, like fortified nutritional yeast, fortified cereal, or a B12 fortified plant milk. This one exists specifically to right around the atrophic gastritis wall. The crystalline B12 in fortified foods and supplements doesn't need stomach acid to be released the way B12 bound inside meat does, so it stays absorbable even when natural digestion has slowed down. 10. Extra virgin olive oil. Not a food you eat on its own, but the fat that makes the fat-soluble vitamins in everything above it, the D, the E, the K, actually absorbable in the first place. None of this comes free of complication, and this is the part most superfood content skips entirely. The leafy greens on this list, the same ones providing all that folate and vitamin K, carry a real interaction risk for older adults taking a blood thinner like warfarin. Vitamin K directly opposes how warfarin works, so pushing your intake up sharply and unpredictably can measurably shift your blood's clotting time in either direction. This isn't folklore. It's documented in medical literature going back decades, including a 1984 case report of a heart attack triggered by diet-induced resistance to warfarin, and later studies quantifying the effect precisely. Researchers found that each extra 100 micrograms of vitamin K consumed daily shifted clotting measurements by a predictable, dose-dependent amount. The actual medical guidance isn't to avoid leafy greens, it's to keep intake steady and consistent day to day, rather than swinging between almost none and a large amount. The protein side has its own asterisk too. Pushing toward that 30 to 40 gram protein target is well supported for healthy older adults, but the same guidelines explicitly carve out an exception for anyone with significant chronic kidney disease, where high protein intake can accelerate decline instead of preventing it. And stacking a protein shake, a multivitamin, and multiple fortified foods without tracking the totals can push fat-soluble vitamins like D and K past a safe range, because unlike vitamin C, they don't simply flush out when you take in more than you need. The warfarin interaction isn't hypothetical. It shows up often enough in medical case literature that clinicians have a name for it: diet-induced anticoagulation instability. Documented cases include patients whose INR, the standard measure of blood clotting time, swung dangerously after abruptly increasing their vegetable intake, and others who lost anticoagulant control entirely after starting a vitamin-heavy diet without adjusting for its vitamin K content. In every documented version of this, the failure point was never the food itself. It was inconsistency. Large, unplanned swings in intake that a fixed medication dose couldn't keep pace with. Optimistically, none of this requires a supplement stack or a lab test just to start. It requires understanding that after 60, the goal isn't eat healthy as a vague abstraction. It's hitting specific thresholds, and these 10 foods happen to be unusually good at hitting them consistently, meal after meal. Realistically, consistency is the actual hard part. Hitting a leucine threshold once doesn't do much. Missing it most days while occasionally overcorrecting does about as little. And if you're on medication like a blood thinner, eat more vegetables isn't automatically the safe default it sounds like. Steady beats sudden every single time. The honest version of superfood was never a food with special powers. It's a food that happens to fit a lock your own body quietly built, sometime in your 50s, without ever asking your permission.